When Babaji first appeared to people in the local area, he was seen by most as a young teenager. But to Natin Baba, a well-known local saint who was revered by many in the Kuan region, Babaji was seen as a very, very old man. Natin Baba said, "You think he is a child? He is the oldest man in creation." The simple fact was that Baba always knew and would intercept all of our misguided thoughts and behaviors. Of his experiences in 1975, Vijay Bhaktiani relates,
I felt constantly observed from both within and without. This led to a total transformation of my existence. On one day, I had been backbiting about a Babaji devotee to someone who had never met Babaji. That very same evening, Babaji called me and told me to avoid talking negative about anyone. I was stunned at his knowledge of my misdemeanor.
Regarding another occasion at the ashram, he wrote,
As I walked with Babaji along with a new foreign woman devotee, I wondered, how have all these foreigners reached here? The next instant, Babaji turned to me and told me to directly ask her how she had reached here.
There was a time very soon after I first went to India. We were down in Bombay. Babaji had a huge crowd in front of him. And there were two women from Canada and myself and somebody else. And we started sharing with each other that Babaji was in our heads. That somehow he knew exactly what we were thinking. And it dawned on us that he was doing that to the whole crowd. And it was like, wow, how does that happen? How does a being plug into all of these people at one time and begin processing their case with them? The first time I saw Babaji, he was climbing out of a cab, picking his nose. I, as a Westerner, taught never to pick my nose in public. Never to do anything rude like that. He plugged me into my politeness stuff. It was just like so quick. And he was relentless. He was totally relentless. He never, ever let up.
He was always on. Imagine that. He was always on. Even when he was sleeping, he was on. I can remember going to Delhi one time, and I needed to do something about a visa or renew a plane ticket or something like that. And I was making my way through Delhi, and I happened to be on a street corner, and this incredible, drop-dead, gorgeous Indian goddess just floated by, and I just kind of went, wow. No big deal. I got over it. A couple of days later, I arrived back in Haidakhan, climbed up the stairs. Babaji was sitting on this bench that was up there. Pretty lady. The favorite phrase that I have to use is that living with Babaji was like living with an X-ray machine that could talk. And I truly mean that. And it was probably the most frightening thing I have ever known in my entire life.
For me, that experience of understanding and realizing day after day that Babaji knew everything that was in my heart was both, like you said, extremely frightening and unnerving. But on the other hand, it was extremely freeing, because I knew I didn't have to hide any. I mean, I couldn't hide. You couldn't hide anything anywhere. And so it was a very freeing experience and a very special experience because I could just be who I was and not hide. An experience I had, and I don't know, Loki might have even been in the office at that time because we were both working in the office. This was, I think, 1981, one of my first trips to be with Babaji in India. And we were, as usual, busy, and my desk was full of papers, and many of our desks were full of papers. And all of a sudden, we heard somebody say, Babaji's coming, Babaji's coming. And of course, Babaji's walking up the stairs. And so we quickly, oh no, and so we're grabbing all the papers and stuffing them in a file cabinet, close the file cabinet, and everything looks real neat. We're just sitting there. And there's many file cabinets and many drawers, and Babaji walks right over to the one drawer, opens it, and he says, I know, like.
So one evening I was playing bhajan or Aarti ceremony in the evening time, and Babaji was sitting on his throne giving darshan. And during that playing, Babaji had one mala tied around his head and one feather. And while I was playing, many times with closed eyes, but then when I looked up, I saw this beautiful form, and I thought, oh, he looks like an American Indian, like like the tribe leader from all these American Indian traditions. And in that moment, he take this mala and throw it in my lap. And while I was playing Aarti, so I had to go on. Wow, it's so beautiful. I know he knows everything. He's really like the father of all tradition. He's really God incarnated. While I was playing, this was like some feeling I get inside. And on that moment, he take an apple and throw it. And then I was like too overwhelmed for the communication you can have with Babaji on that level. And many times he didn't speak much, but on those special occasions when you had some strong, I don't know, realization, then he would be there to confirm whatever you were going through. And this was not happening with me. There were maybe 100 people in the kirtan hall, and they would all have those kinds of experiences at the same time. And that's of course the miracle how Babaji, he just knew everything. Like I told him, he knew everything. From past, present, from all my deeds. I remember in one woman's account from, I think, a Canadian woman who was telling from that when she was young, a child from 12-year-old, that she was doing some praying because she had difficulty in her family, and when she came to Babaji, Babaji reminded her, remember when you prayed to me about this and that?
I think as we're struggling to remember something to say, one thing that I've certainly encountered in my life, and certainly I'm feeling very profoundly in the moment, is that about 99.9% of what Babaji said or did with me and to me, I didn't get at all. And I thought I was really hot stuff. Now you just figure, Loke is talking about enormity of ego. So you take 1/10 of a percentage point of what you might have gotten, and the swelled head you could get over 1/10 of a percent. Just imagine where you could be at if you even got 10%. He seemed to continually set people up and do those things which got right into where the person was at. Now, supposedly this is from a being who couldn't read or write, but he knew everything about everything. He didn't need to read or write. And he was so phenomenally, remarkably consistent in his work with everyone that he would maybe have, as Luke was talking before about processing a crowd of people and what was in their minds, especially in the ashram, where there was more ability, I guess, to do this. He had everybody there involved in a full-time drama that was showing them exactly where they were at. And he would have a couple hundred of these balls that he was juggling all at the same time. Meanwhile, he's sitting there talking to a villager about how his diarrhea is going. As if that's the only thing he's doing. Meanwhile, over across the river, you hear somebody flipping out. And somebody over there is laughing hysterically. And somebody over here is knitting very quietly. And somebody over there is cleaning out the toilet. And all of these balls he had going all the time. I can remember having numerous encounters where all of a sudden my stuff was up and I was literally gagging and choking on it. Babaji had assigned Malti and I to decorate the ashram one time. And one afternoon, during a satsang that was a darshan that was being held in the temple, he was sitting there, and all of a sudden, without warning, he called Malti on the carpet. And just started tearing her apart. And Malti was just kind of standing there, turning a whiter shade of pale, getting whiter and whiter and whiter. And then all of a sudden I had the thought, let's see, I was working with Malti when he's done with her, And then the next thought was, okay, right, and I'm having this paranoid feeling, and if I don't get over it, he's gonna get it, and I'm really gonna get it. So I said, okay, I give it 5 seconds. If the paranoia doesn't pass, I'm out of here. Well, 5 seconds passed, and I was getting really paranoid. So I started backpedaling like this. And the original temple in Haidakhan is very small. You can't really even stand up very well in it, and can barely move around in it. And I just kind of backpedaled around the temple, out of sight of Babaji, turned, and made a beeline for the stairs up out of there. I got halfway up the stairs. I just froze like this. And I went, oh no, here we go. So, turn down the stairs, walk up the aisle between the people, and he's sitting there like this. And in that particular moment, I was able to go pranam, look him right in the eyes, and in my mind say, you got me, and I know it, and I know why. Can we kind of move on? and very, very slowly, very respectfully, I tried to smile. Like, this isn't bothering me, I'm over it. And it very slowly came. And his grimace, which could be really pretty scary, very slowly turned into a Cheshire Cat grin. Okay, mister. Out of there.
People gave Babaji many gifts, and sometimes they give him a whole stack of saris. And so he went into his room, and he got a sari, and he danced out and gave it to Motu, who was sitting next to me, and then he danced back in his room and gave one to Musirada and to Neelam and to all the women that were there, all 4 or 5 except me. And of course also I had never received a sari yet from Babaji either, and so I was just wanting to get one. But what came up for me even more so was this feeling of inadequacy. I wasn't good enough. These other women were much better devotees than I was, and that's why they got the saris, and I wasn't such a good devotee. I hadn't been there long enough. I wasn't. Who knows? I just went through the whole repertoire of why I wasn't good enough. And so I went up to my room to take my nap, and as I took off the sari I had on, and I was in my petticoat and blouse to take my nap, just tucking into bed, and all of a sudden there's a rap on my door. And then I hear a bunch of commotion outside, and people say, "It's Babaji, it's Babaji!" And Babaji didn't come up to the women's rooms generally, particularly when we're napping, and it was not appropriate to go to the door in my petticoat, so I'm wrapping this sari around me and running to the door as quickly as I can. And Babaji is there, and when I open the door, he just smiled at me and handed me this gold silver brocade sari. And the rest of the saris were cotton that he gave away.
Don't waste too much on the setup.
Babaji is also the master of, like we were talking last night and today, knowing everything that went on in the mind. And as soon as I would get it, or any devotee would get it, there was some acknowledgement. Maybe a piece of candy you were saying last night, or maybe a wink or a little smile. In this case, it was a gold silk brocade sari. And